All right, so Leo, if you go to the YouTube channel now, it'll be streaming.
Okay. Yeah, I keep trying to look for it. All right, I see it now.
Okay, yeah, it should be coming through now. All right, so let me. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and get things started. All right. First of all, I want to welcome everybody to the Aftermath of Saul G. I'm your host, as always, on a Monday night. We started off a little bit later tonight, but it's all good. You know, we like to be on time on this show. But like I said, we started off a little bit later tonight, but it's all for a good cause. So first of all, I'd like to introduce, as always, the Alfred to my Bruce Wayne, BJ, broadcasting live from Tennessee. How you doing?
Hey, what's up? How y'all doing?
I'm doing really, really well, man. I'm not going to waste a lot of time tonight because we do have a special guest on tonight, and I'll let him do his own little promo and kind of tell you a little bit about who he is if you do not know who he is. But we are joined by a special guest tonight, Mr. Leo Dunson. And then we're also going to be joined by, I call him my favorite Democrat, Mr. Anthony Hegler, as well. So I'm just going to go ahead and let Leo just give you a brief bio about who he is. And we'll just go ahead and get right into the topic because, we got a good topic tonight and I want to get as much time out of these young men as possible. So, Leo, just go ahead and tell the people who you are and we'll go from there.
So I'm a political activist. Most people, I guess, classify me as a conservative political activist. I like to do music. A lot of conservative activists of the past, whether it be Larry Elder, Thomas Sowell, or Booker T. Washington, they all wrote books about conservatism, and that was how they tried to reach the Black community by delivering that message. I actually write songs, and I have an album out called Free from Mental Slavery. It's an album that I put out, pretty much a conservative hip hop album, and I'm actually working on my second one right now, which is called Voted for Trump, but I'm pro-Black.
Okay, and is that a now you say hip hop? Are you rapping? Are you singing?
Yeah, I'm rapping. Yeah, I'm rapping.
Okay, you rapping? So you spitting the hot fire? Oh, okay. All right. Well, okay. Well,
I got music videos on YouTube right now. I don't know if you haven't seen, so I got something out.
Well, you got music videos. Okay. Well, shoot, I got to make sure I go ahead and plug some of that because unlike a lot of the music that we use, I'm pretty sure. Hopefully, I'm gonna go ahead and ask your permission now because a lot of times we keep using music. Or we'll use somebody saying something and they keep trying to flag it. So do we have permission to maybe?
Got my permission. It's all good.
We got, all right, so cool. Everybody saw it. So YouTube, don't be trying to flag this and say we use Leo Dunson's copyrighted music and he had a problem with it because we got him on tape. All right. So I want to get the conversation started tonight because it's 2019 now. And I feel like the country is continuing to get more and more divided, but what I am trying to strive for and what I ask all conservatives, liberals, wherever you decide to fall, is I feel like we need to make a push towards a conversation, not towards winning an argument, not towards arguing, but just expanding the conversation and seeing if there is anything that we can agree on, anything that we can meet in the middle on, if there is anything that we can do to kind of sort of stop like this, a lot of divisiveness that's going on. You know what I mean? Anything that involves Trump, it automatically goes sideways. Anything that is, we got the shutdown going on. It's everything is that we speak on, everything that we want to talk about. It basically is which side of the line do you follow, right? So the reason why what we're going to talk about tonight is we're going to talk about, I call it the Democratic monopoly of the Black vote. Now, the reason why I want to have a conversation about this is because, in my opinion, I feel that because, like I already said, I'm pretty much I consider myself more libertarian. I know that falls on the right, that falls as a conservative, but I consider myself a lot more libertarian, especially when it comes to some of these social issues that I have recently decided, probably maybe a couple of years ago, that, you know what, I don't necessarily need to just be hard right on some of these issues. You know what I'm saying? I can kind of move towards the center and say, you know what, maybe this isn't my problem. And I kind of sort of started agreeing with what the libertarians said. So as far as the black vote goes, I feel like there is a obvious monopoly that the Democrats have, because there is no other group of people to me in this country where it is seen as as almost being like a detriment to society to not be a Democrat, to not, like in Georgia, if you didn't vote for Abrams, in Florida, if you didn't vote for Gillum, you know what I mean? It's not, it hasn't gone to the point of where if you're just black, we're going to support you. It's going to the point where if you're black and Democrat, then it's almost like you start to get the fan support, you start to get the celebrity support. I mean, because I remember when John James ran in Michigan, he didn't get that celebrity support that you saw for Abrams and Gillum and even Beto O'Rourke. You know what I mean? He didn't have all those people coming out for him. So I would just like to get the conversation started with a historical perspective of, as soon as the Civil War ended, the majority of black people, you can say the recently freed slaves and the free people, the majority of people at that point was overwhelmingly Republican at that point in time. Okay, so then I will start with Mr. Dunson. After the Civil War, let's just start there. We're not going to bring it to the modern day yet. Can you think of anything that you could point to as to why you feel at that point in time black people were overwhelmingly Republican?
Well, yeah. I mean, besides the fact that the Republican Party was created to abolish slavery. I mean, that's literally the party's platform was created to abolish slavery. Also, the Republican Party, as then and now, stood for gun rights. If you were a slave and you were coming out of slavery, the first thing you wanted was to protect your family and your property. So you needed a gun. So of course you would be for gun rights, right? For everybody. The Republican Party then and now were for lower taxes. So if you were a slave and you were coming out of you were coming out of slavery, the first thing you would want was lower taxes, because you don't want the government taxing you, because they've just been taxing you for the last 400 years. The Republican Party then and now. I mean, I can go on and on from policy to policy, but also yeah. So I mean, so for the most part, the newly freed slaves were Republican, because the Republican had a platform and a base that pretty much stood for everything that we needed. I mean, it was created for us and by us. Right. I don't want to say where it switched at, but I think when you're in poverty and someone tells you to pick yourself up by your own bootstraps, 60 or 70 years later, that's probably where it switched. But you got to also realize this: there's always been a divide between Black America, where there's some of us, Booker T. Washington, say pick yourself up by your own bootstraps, and then there's somebody else, W.E. Du Bois, that say the government should give us help. There's always been a divide. One of us was always saying, no, let's start our own businesses. The other one was saying, no, they should help us get businesses. So there's always been a divide. The problem today is there's only one monolithic voice, and that's the voice for government assistance, which is coming from the liberal side. Okay.
Anthony, I'll ask you a little bit of a different question. It's kind of the same question, but I was asking to you from, more or less your perspective. I guess you could say immediately following the Civil War through Construction, do you feel that at that time, do you feel that the Democratic Party had the best interest of Black people in mind at that time?
No, I don't think they had Black people in mind, because for one, the Democrats at that point were still the conservative, not conservatives, but the Confederates or whatever. And you notice that if you read history after Lincoln got killed, I forgot the last president's name. I can never remember his name.
Andrew Johnson.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Wait, just to be clear, you're talking about the president who took over after Lincoln, or are you talking about the president of the Confederacy? Yeah,
after Lincoln.
Andrew Johnson, the absolute worst president ever. But we're not gonna go there tonight. Keep going. Yeah.
So basically, he said, he was like, all right, we got to unify this country. So the quickest and fastest way was to bring the South back into the whole fold and give the Southern white man back power, back power in that region. Because at that point, after the Civil War, Black people started their own schools. They were running as becoming senators in the Republican Party, which is Leon's is correct on that. At that time, it was still the Democratic Party was still very anti-black at that point, or whatever.
Okay.
And
Right.
one thing I do want to push back on that Leo said is about taxes, about being free from slavery. We didn't get the income tax until 1913. So taxes wasn't a problem back then for black folks just out of slavery.
I have no rebuttal to that. What I was talking about was there was always a tax, right? From Congress would always tax the states to receive money for the military. Is that it? Are you saying there wasn't a tax, that there was no kind of time? I mean, they were arguing about taxes at the beginning of the founding of the Constitution.
Right, there. Well, I'm talking when I think you're talking about taxes, I'm thinking you're talking about income tax.
No. I'm just talking about taxes in general.
Okay.
So the Republicans always wanted it to be lower. The Democrats have always wanted it to be higher.
Right. Okay, I got you.
Okay, now
also, can I say something else too? Also,
you're good. Go ahead.
Yeah. Also, you said that back then that the black when black Americans, when we first came out of slavery, we had our own schools, right? And the Republican Party was for that, was for us having our own schools.
Right.
They called it school choice. Today, the Democrat Party is against us having our own schools, charter schools, private schools. So still, as I mentioned, earlier, I said that the Republican Party was for lower taxes. They were for gun rights then, and they were for school choice. So all three of these things, the Republican Party still stand for right now here today. So the Republican Party didn't change. We did as black people. That's what I'm going to prove as we continue this on.
Okay. And okay, like one thing I just want to kind of, I'm gonna ask BJ to pull up real quick. We're just gonna watch a little quick information of it because you brought up Booker T. Washington, and I kind of agree with you on the somewhat of the divide. So BJ, if you'll pull up that the one I gave you about, it's kind of like, I think it's like 3 minutes about with Booker T. Washington from the History Channel, and it basically gives you a brief overview about who he was, because I know conservatives, especially black conservatives, we love to kind of stand on who Booker T. Washington was and what he did. And a lot of people say, well, Booker T. Washington he's like the go-to Republican, and Frederick Douglass. I'm not going to get into Frederick Douglass tonight because we'll eventually touch it as well. But I feel like Frederick Douglass was more or less like the to me, what I feel like the modern day Republican should be like, not necessarily like what the Booker T is. I feel like, and it's no offense to Booker T, but I feel like to kind of break the stigma that is associated with black conservatism, or just being a black conservative, black Republican, or even a black person on the right, I think the Frederick Douglass approach will be a little bit of a better thing. And I'll kind of explain that in a second. I just want to kind of watch a minute or two of this, and we'll kind of talk about who Booker T was, and then we'll start to bring it a little bit further into the modern day, and we'll kind of attack some of the modern day problems of what's going on. So go ahead and play that for me, BJ.
Washington was the most well-known African American of his time, the most celebrated black person in the entire world.
Hey, can y'all hear that?
No, turn it up.
A little bit.
Yeah, can you turn it up?
It's up out of the way.
Okay, I'm just gonna mute everybody for a second. Hold on.
And so he had.
Oh shoot! Dang, I can't do that.
But he was determined, and that's how he learned to read and write.
Washington was allowed to attend school while working as a servant, and in 1872, he befriended the founder of Hampton Institute, who offered him a scholarship to the school.
The emphasis at school was on industrial education, on crafts, on technical skills, teaching blacks and the former slaves how to make themselves valuable to the community in a very literal way.
Washington taught at Hampton before being appointed by General Samuel Armstrong to head the newly formed institute in Tuskegee in 1881.
This was a groundbreaking endeavor because Armstrong trusted this young man to go to Alabama and create something basically out of nothing.
During the post-Reconstruction period, tensions between African Americans and Southern whites were at a fever pitch. But as evidence of racial progress, Washington was asked to address a predominantly white audience at the 1895 Atlanta Expo. The speech turned Washington into a national figure.
The Atlanta Compromise speech was viewed as controversial because he essentially said that politics was for mainstream society and the thing for African Americans was to be separate as the fingers on our hand and not involve ourselves with white society.
Booker T. Washington saw that as a bargain that he had to strike. Those who disagreed with him felt that he had conceded far, far too much to the conservative white South.
In 1900, Washington formed the National Negro Business League to promote the economic development of African Americans. 1 year later, he chronicled his life in the autobiography Up From Slavery.
Booker T. Washington's autobiography was one of the most influential books published by an African American at the turn of the century.
Washington urged African Americans to accept their unequal position in society while secretly funding litigation for civil rights cases. In 1905, however, leaders such as W.E.B. Du Bois renounced Washington's philosophy and insisted upon full civil rights for all African Americans.
There were people during Washington's time and even now who were very critical of Washington's racial politics. Washington was willing to trade political and voting rights for economic rights. And Du Bois and others said, that's too hard a bargain.
Washington remained principal of Tuskegee and wrote a total of 14 books before his death on November 14, 1915.
All right, BJ, you can stop it. Yeah. Okay. So I think that was a pretty accurate. It kind of went going to what you had talked about a little bit, Leo. Now, before we come into the modern day, it's kind of like the last from a historical perspective, because this is one thing that I point to. A lot of people like to point to, they want to go a lot further into the 60s, but they want to talk about JFK when you talk about where the actual kind of black community or the black vote was actually split. I feel it was more or less done with Booker T. Washington and W.E.B. Du Bois when he talked about basically what he said was, hey, look, we don't need equal rights. As long as the government will give us money for education, we'll be okay by ourselves. We don't need political power. Let's stay away from it. Almost accept our second-class citizenship, and we'll kind of sort of just be off to the side somewhere, and that will be better. Trying to gain political power is not the way of the quote-unquote the Negro in America. Your thoughts on Booker T. Washington versus W.E. Du Bois and kind of sort of what that was talking about, and what do you think about that?
So my thoughts on Booker T. Washington, Up From Slavery. I got the book right here.
Oh yeah. Well, you can't. We kind of saw it a little bit. You got that fancy background back there, so we
right.
Yeah, we're gonna assume that you put up. We saw the book at first, then it got faded into the flag and the Holy Bible. So just let you know. But continue. Right. I'm sorry.
Well, that's his book. That's his book, Up From Slavery. It's funny because I'm actually just now starting to read that book. I've always known a little bit about Booker T. Washington, but I never dived in deep. So I wanted to dive in deep with it. But I agree with Booker T. Washington on many of the fronts, right? Economically and business, right? When you own your own business, when you own your own money in communities, you don't necessarily have to worry about the war in Syria. I don't know. Can you guys hear me? Okay. Yeah. So I think I think it was misinterpreted what he was trying to say, because many people said that Obama in his first 2 years was taking the Booker T. Washington approach. They said that he was telling black people, pick yourself up by your own bootstraps. And what I think the Booker T. Washington approach, in my opinion, is for us to focus on owning our own land and producing our own crops. I don't know if you guys have heard of Jay Morrison, but I follow Jay Morrison, Dr. Boyce Watkins. I don't know if you guys heard of him either. Yeah,
but he lives in Atlanta. He lives out here.
Okay, so you heard of him too. So both of them are, to me, modern day Booker T. Washingtons. Now, on the social issues, they're more liberal for sure, right? But as far as like black people being economically independent, that's their platform. They're talking about, hey, look, own your own business, produce your own crops, own your own land. And I 100% agree with Booker T. Washington on that, because when you come out of slavery, it's one thing to be a congressman. and it's actually been proven. There's a book called Please Stop Helping Us Liberals. Oh my God, I can't think of his name, by Jason Riley. And he showed that as Black people got more political power, we became more economically broke. So you know how they say the term woke is broke, because the more congressmen and senators we have, I can prove it to you right now. Right now in the House of Representatives, we have 40 plus of Black Congressional caucus members, right? I think it's 49. That's enough for them to hold Congress hostage. That means no bill can get passed unless they vote for it. So if political power was enough to take us out of poverty, then they could just say, you know what, we're not voting for anything. Forget a government shutdown. We're not going to vote for nothing until you guys pass a bill for Black America. But obviously, the more political power we have more power than we've ever had right now. And our people are, we still have record crime. We still have record poverty and, all the other issues that we have going on in our community. So I agree 100% with Booker T. Washington.
Anthony?
Yeah, I kind of agree with Booker T as far as the economic part, but at the same time, I would take the approach of W. Du Bois and Booker T put it together. Because one thing I understand, man, for me working in corporate America, and so I work at a law firm. I used to work at a law firm, and these rich white men, they vote. You know what I'm saying? They go into these dinners. You know what I'm saying? They donate $20,000, $30,000, and they're going to these things. So I think we should have both our hands. We'll have both hands in the pot in both pots. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So I'm down with the whole, being, starting our own business and being economically independent, stuff like that.
Right. Yeah, that's why I said, kind of going back to what I was saying earlier when I said the Frederick Douglass approach, is because I felt like Frederick Douglass was the happy medium, and Frederick Douglass was more or less, he didn't try to say things to fit in. You know what I'm saying? Like, he didn't try to say things to kind of be accepted. Frederick Douglass was like, hey, look, this is the way it is. I'm not going to sugarcoat my words for anybody. But he was so eloquent in how he did it, you had to respect what he was saying. Now, it's a situation for me where I feel like Frederick Douglass was a happy medium, because he knew that we could not just totally, that equality was still something that we needed to get, because until you can actually look at us the same way on an equal level, then you're always going to be like some inhuman thing. We're never going to be even considered a human being in your eyes until we are at least viewed as equal human beings. So I feel like the Frederick Douglass approach is the approach that, to me, the modern day Black Republicans or Black conservatives need to approach, because and this is now we're going to kind of start to shift things into the modern day, and there's some of the problems that I see just from my perspective. I feel like modern day, especially Black conservatives, any Black people on the right, there is this let's just be honest, it is more or less like like it's almost like you're trying to please the white conservative. You understand what I'm saying? It's like the Black conservatives that you kind of hear from. Sometimes I'm like, well, who are you speaking to? Are you speaking to the Black people that you claim to care about? Or are you just saying things that are going to get you, likes or whatever the case may be, to try to get white people to like you, but you're never going to be able to reach the group that you say you care about. Right. So that's one problem. I feel like there's an appeasing nature of Black conservatives to try to say things to make white people feel comfortable. And I don't understand it, because Black liberals have zero issue saying whatever they want to say, even if it's about Black liberals, white liberals, it don't matter who. Black liberals have 0 point expressing their opinion, and they don't care if you like it or not. And that's the reason why I'm saying I think the Frederick Douglass approach is a lot more, will get us a lot more traction in the Black community, because it won't just seem like you're trying to say something to appease the masses. And that's the first point that I would probably like to start with. So, Leo, you got anything with that?
No, yeah, I agree with you, and I also agree with Anthony. And he was saying that we need to take a little bit of both. We got to take some from both of them. I agree with that approach largely. The problem that we have had in our community is with the W.E. Du Bois approach is that too many of us have either A, went all in political, or B, went all in business. Like Jay Morrison, all business, right? And then you can say like the NAACP is all political. You know what I mean? And then the other problem I find with going with falling into the politics is that it almost seemed like when we start marching and going for causes, we forget about our people. Next thing you know, we marching for gay rights. Next thing you know, we marching for women's rights. Wait. Gays and women got more rights than us. I'm talking about like what's going on for our people, for black people, right? So we're supposed to be talking about that. And then I'm gonna comment on what you said about a lot of the black Republicans. A lot of us, it looked like we cooning for views. That's what I call it, right? Like you cooning for views. Like, so you like, oh, I love Trump every video. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, and black people like, well, I thought you was for us. You know what I mean? And I actually even have people, believe it or not, that will hit me up. I'm sure y'all believe it or not. I'm sure y'all hear it. But if you would say, I'm cooning for views. Right. Some of y'all probably.
I've heard it. Yeah, I've heard you. I mean, I'm just gonna be. I mean, you on here. I mean, we speak the truth on it. So I mean, I have heard that that you're kind of going very far right to try to get yourself out there for maybe some of your future political aspirations and things like that. I have heard that. That's the reason why, like I said, I wanted to get you on the show because I wanted to hear it from your mouth as well.
Yeah, and so what's crazy is every person that said that about me, they only said it because I joined Candace and her Blexit movement, and I started following with her. And the truth be told, if you follow Candace, I just interviewed Candace the other day on my channel. If you follow Candace, if you listen to any one of her videos on Fox News, or if you see one of her videos on YouTube, you're gonna say, yeah, she cooning for views. But if you speak to her in person and see her passion and actually see her real, true, passion for the community, you're gonna be like, whoa, this is a little bit different. You know what I'm saying? So, and it's funny because that's exactly what me and her talked about in the interview I did with her. I said that she even said in the interview, she said, yeah, there's people that's critical of me, and then when they meet me, they're like, oh wow, she really do believe in this. And that's how I was. I was real critical of her. I was like, I don't know if she really for us. But then I spoke to her in person, and I got a whole different perspective. But the truth be told, yeah, I mean, it is what it is. A lot of black conservatives, there is some of them that are just cooning for views. I'm not finna name them, but there is some of them that it doesn't seem like.
No, you're fine. Yeah.
But then I can also say this too. Every black conservative isn't the same. Like, okay, this is what I should say. Every black conservative isn't pro-black. You know what I'm saying? Just like every black liberal isn't pro-black. I give you a good example. Van Jones. I wouldn't consider him a pro-black liberal. You know what I'm saying? But I mean, I would say T.I. was a pro-black liberal. He probably a little bit, misguided, but he does want the community to be better. Right? Genuinely. Would you say that?
Yeah, I agree. Van Jones has actually come and done a little bit better job lately. He's not as I guess after the election, I think when he kind of worked with the president on some of that criminal justice reform thing, I think he kind of, not saying that he needed to, boost the president or anything like that, but I feel like he's been a little bit more fair ever since that. He's not Don Lemon. I'll put it to you like that.
So this is what I should say when I say pro-black. I should say Van Jones versus Malcolm Lamont Hill. Right? You know what I mean? That's what I should say. And what I'm saying by pro-black is I'm meaning, to me, that you can still have your political views and yet still have a empathy and plight for black people, right? For the condition that black people are in. Many people don't know this about me until they speak to me. And they're like, oh, I thought he was out here cooning. Right? Yeah. And I'm like,
well, that's what I'm saying. That's the reason. Well, once again, that's the reason why, like I said, when we decided to do this show, I said, I'll talk to anybody. And it was a situation where I ain't gonna lie, that's when I started to hear it. I was like, well, I don't really know the guy. It was like, well, y'all at YBLS together. I said, yeah, I saw him. I might have spoke to him once or twice, but it's not like I can say, I know this young man. You know what I'm saying? I know this guy. I know of him. I know about him. I've heard of some things you're trying to do. But that's why I always say, look, when it comes to anybody, I'll talk to anybody. I want to get you, and just like I said, we're just having a regular conversation and see what you say. You know what I mean? Like, that's just how I looked at it, because trust me, the stuff you're talking about, that's what I was hearing. So I was like, well, let me get him on the show and see what he says, because if you came on here with a Trump hat on, I was just gonna be like, well, we already know we're about to get tonight, ladies and gentlemen. So it's just like, well, let's just go ahead and trump it on up and, go ahead and start talking about how low black unemployment is and how he's not racist. And we're gonna spend an hour doing stuff like that. And I'm like, man, this ain't gonna get us nowhere. But you know,
right.
Well, hold on now. I do support the president 100% as well too.
Correct. No, I'm not. No, I mean, I'm not knocking. Everybody knows I do as well, so it's not a thing. But once again, we can be very honest on this show. You understand what I'm saying? And the thing about the honesty that we have on this show is, yeah, like I said, I support the president, voted for him. I've been on the record saying that plenty of times. But at the same time, I will hold him accountable. I will talk about some of the things he does. If there's something he does that I disagree with, I feel like that's the only way to hold any politician accountable, regardless of whether it's because if we just go full partisan and we just got to ride with everything that the Republicans do, we're going to end up looking really bad, I feel like, in the future, because it's like if you just ride with the Republicans, if you just ride with the conservatives on everything, you're going to end up looking crazy, and you're going to have to end up defending some foolishness, right? Like, who was that? Was it the congressman out there who was talking about white supremacists and the white nationalists? Yeah, you see what I'm saying? So you can't just all of a sudden just say everything Republican and conservative is just great, because then you know what? That comes out and it's just like, well, what about that? What do you think about that? Hey, it's wrong. I whatever dude was saying about white nationalists, white supremacists, he's an idiot for saying that, and he needs to go ahead and go somewhere, because he's making our job very difficult when he comes out and says dumb stuff like that. I'm never going to support anything like that, racism, KK, none of that type of stuff. I'm never going to support it. So period. Like people like, well, you defend, no. Just because I associate myself based on a set of goals, principles, ideologies, or whatever, and it happens that I fall on the right and I consider myself very libertarian, it doesn't mean that I just fully just rubber stamp everything that comes off because it has an R next to it. Anthony, do you have something with the with that? I mean, from like I said, I call you my favorite Democrat. Is that what you see coming? Is that what you see coming from a lot of Black conservatives? It's like the Samuel L. Jackson from the Django is pretty much what we're doing. Is that what you feel?
This is what I see on social media, because I follow just about everybody from that came out of Turning Point USA, all the Black conservatives. Say, for example, President Trump would tweet something, right? And then 5 minutes later, each one of those people will post the same thing. It's almost like they're in competition with each other to sound like who's a better Trump supporter with each other or whatever. And sometimes when they're talking about issues with the Black community, it's kind of like in a hostile manner. So when they're doing it, it makes it hard for Black people to really, you know our people from, I don't care if you're Black in Georgia, you Black in California, we got that kind of the same, our reaction is kind of the same no matter what. We tend to like kind of block you out and like, man, we don't want to hear that. It's with Black people, you just have to be real, no matter if you're Democrat or Republican. Just be real. We don't like when you feel like when you're trying to like you're just trying to do this like so I can become famous or make some type of monetary value off. I'm not saying anybody specific or whatever, but that's a turnoff for Black folks in general.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I 100% agree with you. I'm gonna take a few of those things you said. You was talking about the liberals at first, how white liberal privilege, because white liberals will hold Black Democrats accountable, right?
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of times Black conservatives won't hold white conservatives accountable. So I think that's what you was trying to say, right? Like in that sense, right?
Pretty much, yeah. Because like that's for me. That's in my opinion, my issue with some of my Black conservative brothers and sisters. When Trump says some dumb stuff, or any conservative says some dumb stuff, instead of critiquing it or say, "Hey, that's not right," it's complete silence. Or if they do give an answer, it's like this broad, like I don't want to diss the president or this other conservative type thing. Because if this is about Black people, whether you're Republican or Democrat, it needs to be about Black folks. At the end of the day, you need to keep it real. Just keep it 100. As you know.
Yeah, and now I'm going to get into the kind of the second issue that I want to talk about, and I feel like, oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. You had something else?
Yeah, I was going to say before you change it, because I was.
Are you good?
Because y'all said a lot.
Break it down. I'm sorry. My bad. Break it down, sir. Break it down. We're good.
Stephen King, Representative Steve King, the one who they said, what did they say? They said that he mentioned white nationalism, white supremacy, and also the Constitution. And he said how that, I can't remember exactly how they put it, but they basically said he endorsed those things. It's funny because I actually did a video about that today, right? And the thing is this, understand that this source is from the New York Times, the most liberal organization on planet Earth. So right off top, there's a huge bias here, right? So, I mean, I'm not being an apologist, or I'm also not defending the representative if he did say this. But he came out, he has a whole video of him explaining what actually happened and how that he did not say what they said he said. Also, there was no audio and there was no video to prove he said these things. The reason why I'm mentioning this is because this is kind of like the Judge Kavanaugh effect. You raped me, it was a gang rape. And then you have the media, you have the microphone. So you put out there on the media that I said that Haiti is a shithole country. But yet you don't have no proof to say that I say that. So now all y'all believe I'm racist. So this is why, only reason why I'm saying this, because I've been accused of things before that I've never said. And people will believe things without even hearing it. So, and then so then back to what you were saying about all the black conservatives who would tweet everything that Trump says. Now that I agree with you, that's cooning for views, right? Cooning for likes, cooning for shares, cooning for views. A lot of these black Republicans don't have the principles down, especially the principle of personal accountability, self-reliance, and picking yourself up by your own bootstraps. A lot of them say, oh, that I'm a conservative and I'm a Republican, but they really looking to master for a handout. I'm preaching, but y'all don't hear me. See, because some of them are sitting up here saying, I mean, this is the honest truth.
I'm like, keep going, son. Just keep going. But hold on, one thing. But the one thing I will say is, and I'll let you keep going. I just want to say that it's not the one thing I'm not saying is to jump on the guy who you were talking about, jump on him and just condemn him and say this. What I am saying is we can at least come out and say if he did say it, we don't support that. That's all I'm saying. I'm not necessarily saying it's kind of sort of like if it's true, we ain't with that. You understand what I'm saying? Instead of just being quiet. It's not. I'm not going to go ahead and convict the man of saying whatever it is he is. I'm saying when I heard about it, and then I heard, like I said, me and him are in the same city. You start listening to Talk 106.7, and you hear people calling in saying, hey, this guy he didn't really mean that, and what's wrong with being in that? It's just like no. See, that's what I'm talking about. I don't want you to have to. We shouldn't even be trying to sit there and even to get into where we look like we're co-signing. It's like if he did say it, we condemn it. You understand what I'm saying? Like you can look at a whole lot of situations. Like we had the whole Kevin Hart situation, I'm not going to get into, but we have him on record saying what he said. You understand what I'm saying? So at that point in time, you can pick, was it just comedy or should he not be saying that about that community? Bottom line. You understand what I'm saying? Because we have him on record. But what I'm saying is it's a situation where when we have people on record, there's still silence.
Right. I personally, this last few years, I don't have any absolute proof that this is what he said or that he has said anything that's racist. And then I also have a video of him coming out, giving the full explanation of what really happened and saying that this didn't happen. So I only can take the man at his word, but also just so we do know, Senator Tim Scott, one of the highest Republicans that we have in office, said that he can 100% condemn if he did say that, is 100% against that. So some our blackest Republican and highest ranking Republican we have said that he was against it. So some Republicans did come out against it. But what I will say is this, no Democrat said anything about President Obama speaking at the KKK funeral of Robert Byrd. The other day, I was listening to the Young Turks and the white host, Anna, said that Whoopi Goldberg is ignorant. Nobody came out said nothing about her. The white liberals all the time will say things, and you know what she really meant by ignorant. The white liberals come out all the time and say stuff about black folks and won't nobody say anything. Now, I mean, I personally ain't a fan of Whoopi Goldberg.
Well,
but if
I'm gonna cut you off. I'll push back on it a little bit. It's a little more in-house. Like I'm because I vote Democrat, but I'm always like I catch a lot of hell from people on the far left all the time because they be like, bro, you're not a real progressive as they call it or whatever. But it's people pushing back. But you may not see it. It's not like, because the lens is so focused on what Trump is doing. So everything that looks close to what he's doing is always going to be magnified at this point right now or whatever. But it's that pushback is there.
Yeah. And then lastly, I'll say, I do agree with you, Anthony, that a lot of black conservatives, when they talk to black people, it's so hostile. Or when they talk about black issues, it's so hostile. They're like, we have crime in our neighborhood. And we got, you like, whoa, bro, hold up.
Right.
So,
right.
Yeah, but and then when they come, and this is another thing. When you speak to Black people, why do you feel you have to change? Like, I mean, I met Anthony because we were talking on a conservatives page, but it was a situation where I noticed, like, okay, this guy says he's not a conservative, but what he's saying is not like, you know, man, if this wasn't a whole bunch of this garbage. And I was like, oh, this guy seemed to be kind of fair. And then I kind of responded and typed back, and it was like, oh, okay, we kind of both agree on this whole thing. And then it kind of sort of just took off from there. We started going back and forth. And I was like, okay, cool.
Right.
So my thing is, I do believe that there is a common ground. But see, the problem is a lot of times when the Black conservatives, you want to start going into the communities where you're normally no part of. And then you want to start coming in condemning and telling all the negativity about the community instead of bringing what you're like, you know what I'm saying? Like, instead of coming in and saying, let's talk about crime, let's talk about the bad school, let's do this. Talk about what you or what conservatives or what change in your vote or any of that stuff, what it can do to make a positive change instead of just coming in and just being overly negative. Because I have even seen Black quote unquote conservatives on Facebook say it's okay sometimes when Black people get shot because you know where the majority of the crime comes from. And I'm sitting there like, seriously? You really gonna say that? Like, those are the type of things we start talking about crime statistics, and then you say, well, that's the reason why he got shot because of the number, because of those crime statistics. When Black people quote crime statistics as a way to say, well, this is why the police shoot them, or this is why that, it's kind of sort of like it's almost like you're doing a self-genocide to yourself, because you're basically saying, hey, look, if the police want to shoot me because I'm Black, hey, I get it. You know, no. You can't ever get to a point where we just go ahead and we co-sign some of that stuff. So that's one of the things that I'll say, like, when we start talking about what Black conservatives can do to push back, just because a statistic is there, it's just like me saying I can go shoot a white guy because guess what? He probably was going to do a mass shooting. No, that doesn't make it right either, right? So we can't allow them to say the same foolishness about us. Or, oh, you know, that white guy's probably a pedophile, right? Based on the statistics. Or I can just go shoot a Catholic priest because you know what? He probably touches little boys. So guess what? I probably saved some lives by doing it. No. You got to take every individual as an individual, and that's all we're asking. So we got to make sure we're doing the same as well, and we're holding them to account, because they can't come off saying these statistics to try to make us look bad.
Right. And if you're going to give another issue I have with some of my brothers and conservative Black brothers and sisters is when you're giving context about certain issues that affect you. Well, when you're talking about a certain issue in our community, give a full context to it. You know, talk about why, for example, there's poverty in like the South Side of Chicago. Talk about redlining, how basically the government designed it where Black people could move to certain neighborhoods, they could get certain loans. You know what I'm saying? Talk about giving a full context, and then at the same time when you're talking, be mindful of the audience you're talking to. Because what I do when I pay attention, I look at all these Black conservatives, I follow them on like Instagram or Twitter. I look at all their followers. I look at all the people who are agreeing with them, and 90% are conservative white men or even white women. So it's like we're reassuring their stereotypes about Black people. And that's what I get frustrated at.
Right.
No, I agree with that sentiment as far as the people who follow us conservatives. But I mean, when I talk to a lot of these, when I talk to white conservatives or Hispanic conservatives, whatever, they always say, in their defense, many of them say they're so happy to see Black people wake up. You know what I mean? And I can't really be mad at them for saying that, because many of them are saying the Democrats, you've been voting Democrat for the last 60, 70 years and you've got nothing. I'm just like amazed to see a Black person actually be conservative. So that's why I'm following you, because I'm just like, I'm excited and I'm happy for you. So that's in their defense. But I would also say, when us conservatives, when we talk about like poverty in the neighborhood, in the Black neighborhoods today, there's no redlining today, right? I mean, this goes back to like Jay Morrison and Dr. Boyce Watkins, theory, and Booker T. Washington theory. They're buying homes, and I follow a lot of these Black people that buy back the blocks. They're buying homes for $7,000 in the hood right now, $3,000 in the hood right now. You know what I mean? They're trying to gentrify our neighborhoods, which is something else I was going to bring up to y'all too. Gentrification. That's also a product of the Democrat Party. And that's been the Democrat Party ideal from the beginning. When we were on a slave plantation, they wanted to make sure we was close to them. The Republican Party was against gentrification and also was for us going to create our own communities. So I'm saying the white conservatives was for y'all. Yeah, y'all go create your own community. Just don't mess with ours. So y'all can have y'all. We're gonna have ours, just like the Jewish got theirs and the Hispanics got theirs and the Asians have theirs. So another bad policy of the Democrat Party is gentrification. You see it happening all over our communities right now. But yeah, that's what I was gonna say. But I do agree that you know us as Black conservatives, we could do a little bit better of trying. We can do a lot better, and I think that's what Blexit is.
I was gonna say change that. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Another thing I get too is like for example, right, I proposed this question a while back on the show, and there's another guy that he was Republican. I asked him, he was like, we've been voting for. Well, he said we've been voting. Blacks been voting Democrat for 40 years. What have you got? And I asked him like, what does the Republican Party have to offer me? But instead of him giving me, say, okay, this is what our platform, this is what I want, this is what Republican policy will do for us. His response was like, what have Democrats did for 40 years? Like, bro, like, if I ask you that question, I'm not asking for a handout. I'm asking, why should I vote for a Republican candidate? Why should I vote a Republican senator or a House representative or a local official or whatever? That's what I'm asking.
Right, and see, I understand that because that's one of those, like, it's kind of like, how you have those talking points, right? It's kind of sort of like when you throw out those talking points just to kind of make a point or to win an argument. It's like, what have they done for you? Blah, blah, this, blah, blah, that, right? And I fully get that. And I've said, I believe on my last show, that one reason why I feel that, and to me, the most important reason is, to me, the W.E.B. Du Bois approach is the reason why I feel like more Black people need to be open to voting Republican, because it gives us political power. It does. That's it. There is really, if you want to talk about party difference and things like that, we can go into some platform difference, but you're going to have to look at who you're voting for, because once again, if we go on what the party is based for, you can sometimes get left and right candidates who you don't agree with. You understand what I'm saying? So my major reason for trying to get Black people is political capital. You go to your Democrat representative and say, if you do not do this, like, for example, we're not going to go deep into it. Legalize marijuana, right? If you do not legalize marijuana in the next 2 years, I'm voting Republican, period. You understand what I'm saying? And then you go to the Republican candidate and you say, hey, look, we will vote Republican if you legalize marijuana. Will you do that? No, you won't. Okay, well, we're just going to keep doing what we're doing. So I think with that political capital, back and forth, where you, like I said, to me, where that vote is earned, because conservatives and liberals, we are very comfortable with straight tickets. All R all the way down, all D all the way down. It's not really as earned, because once you get in that voter booth, for most liberals and for most conservatives, it's, I refuse to vote Democrat no matter what platform, no matter what has gotten done in the past. You see what I'm saying? So I feel like for both sides, we would be a much a better represented country if every 2 years for congressmen and every 6 years for senators and every 4 years for a president, you are actually not just going strict party lines, and we're actually voting based on the person who you think is at least in their platform trying to earn your vote.
Right.
That's my major reason for telling Black people this is why you vote Republican.
Stand in the middle and make the party earn your vote, pretty much. I get what you're saying.
Yeah, that's the only reason that I have, because when you talk about politics, we normally don't get what we want. Let's be honest, we don't. We normally do not get what we want. Politicians run on 200-point platform, and they probably do 5% of it, maybe. And then we're content with it to the next election because they come out and they promise something else.
So I completely disagree 100%. President Donald Trump ran on a platform, I'd probably say, if you wanted to say 200 points, he's done at least 150 of those points. And that's just the honest truth. Ronald Reagan also ran on a platform, and he actually accomplished almost most of the things he said that he was going to do. But I'm also going to say this. Anthony asked the question. He said, why should Black people vote for Republicans? Mm-hmm. He said that he always asks Democrats, he always say, hey, why does y'all vote Republicans? You said they should vote Republican just so we can split our vote for for political reasons. I think we should vote for Republicans for policy reasons. I'm going to go ahead and tell you why right now.
Well, no, I'm sorry. I don't mean to cut you off, right? I just wanted to say one thing. I wasn't speaking of specifics. We have examples of politicians who actually do a good job. So I'm not trying to say, I'm saying politicians on the whole. You named Reagan and you named Trump. So that would be 2 out of the 10,000 that we've had since Reagan was in cabinet. We're talking about local, state, all these government officials.
Bush too. I didn't want to name Bush.
No, I'm just saying, like, well, yeah. So even if you name those 3, and I give you those 3, then that's 3 out of the 10,000 that have come through since Reagan has been in office. You understand what I'm saying? I'm saying for the most part, politicians do not keep their promises. Do you agree with that? That was my point. I'm not saying all of them don't. I'm just saying, to me, the majority of politicians don't keep their promises.
Yeah, I would agree with you that the majority of politicians don't keep their promises when it comes down to the local congressman or even the congressman, the state congressmen or senators. And I think mainly that is because, let's say, for example, if you're, a Republican congressman and you say, we're going to abolish Obamacare. Well, you really don't have the power to abolish Obamacare unless you get the other votes from everybody else, right? So a lot of times when they run on these policies, we feel defeated as a people, or we feel deflated, or like we didn't get what we wanted because they didn't accomplish what they said they were going to accomplish. But I'm talking about specifically these presidential candidates. A president has a little bit more power, a lot more power than a congressman or a senator. And many of the things that a president says that he can do, he or she can do, right? Like Obama saying that you can keep your health care plan. If I start Obamacare, you can keep your doctor. That didn't happen. Like Obama saying that he believed that marriage was between a man and a woman, and yet he get in office and he went off for gay marriage policies. That didn't happen. He said that he was going to make housing more affordable. That didn't happen, right? Okay. So I'm saying that politicians, especially at the presidential level, there's things that they can do, and I'm going to prove to you right now that what black
run them down. Convince Anthony in 2 minutes or less why he should vote Republican. There you go. Go ahead.
Overnight, if black people voted for Republicans right off top, let's just say, for example, let's use California, Oakland, California. If you voted for all Republicans in your local district, all in your state, and your governor, you would all overnight get your gun right back, right? Because right now in California, it's almost impossible for you to have your own right to bear arms. So you'd be able to protect your family and your friends and your property from thugs, from whoever you want to protect it from, the police or the government, but you'd be able to protect yourself. Overnight, you'd have school choice, right? Right now, you only have public schools. If you had all Republican in every district, you'd have school choice. That means charter schools. That means private schools. That means we'd have more black teachers. That means we can teach black history. That means we can teach our kids about business, about taxes, about finance. We can teach them about ourselves. Right. And then also you'd have tax subsidies and tax havens to come in our neighborhood for us, not for gentrification like they got right now. But I'm saying you can do it specifically for black people. And then private healthcare, public healthcare we had public healthcare since private healthcare forever. And America has had some of the best healthcare in the whole world. Many of these other countries have horrible healthcare. Now we talk about standing in line. Yeah, it takes maybe a longer time, but we've had the best. We got the highest paid doctors. We got the best healthcare. They leave Germany to come to America to get transplants. So that's just a few things that you would have overnight, which means so we'd have our security back, and we'd have our prosperity, and we'd be able to educate our kids. That's just off policy alone, just by us all voting Republican overnight.
So Anthony, can we invite you to the RNC yet? Are you convinced?
No. I don't know about that.
I'm just messing with you. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
How you did that? That is how every black conservative should do it. Because now I'm willing to listen to you. Because when you come, like you came in a different direction, like like the typical, I call it the turning point USA talking points or whatever, and it's like it's attack mode. Automatically, I'm like, I don't want to hear this, bro. I don't want to talk to you. Or either I'm not going to talk to you, or I'm going to get argumentative with you. I'm not hearing you. But the way you did it was okay. I was like, dang, you know what? I do like school choice. I'm a Democrat. Like I do like school choice because, like you said, Black history. Teach business classes. I do own firearms. I'm saying, like a gun owner. Then The healthcare thing, I probably disagree with you because it's expensive to go to the emergency room or to even to get a surgery done. We had a $5,000 deductible just to get the surgery done, to even get started. You know what I'm saying? So that's the only thing I probably disagree with you on that. But the way you presented it, the way you presented it was perfect, man. Because I believe more people would receive more Black conservatives, period, if they came that manner to Black people.
Yeah, thank you, bro. And there's a guy named Black Guns Matter. I really like him a lot, Major Tory, because Maj, yeah, he specifically just towards gun rights for Black people. And you know, you can tell he pro-Black and he loves Black people. And I like the way he presents his message to us. And I'm just trying to be the other side to that, the political side to that. But the reason why I said healthcare was because in order for us to have public healthcare, they have to take more money from us. So, for example, many people, we all said we wanted free healthcare, but then I used to work in corporate America. I don't know more, but I remember being up in there, and you know, when people get that extra $300 taken out their check, they like, "Whoa! I thought you were saying free healthcare, like free, meaning you was gonna pay for it, right?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Or the rich was gonna pay for it, not me. You know what I'm saying? So,
right. Well, hold on. Go ahead. Well, I want to say something real quick about that, but I feel like that issue could be solved if we actually use the money that we pay in taxes properly. You understand what I'm saying? Like, for example, like, okay, I'm gonna do a big conservative talking point, like Planned Parenthood, right? If somebody said, hey, look, we're going to take the Planned Parenthood funding and we're going to push that into some of these like federal healthcare programs. You understand what I'm saying? So that the cost of these things can come down. Because if you think about it, when it comes to taxes, we really don't have any control over where the money goes. We say we don't want our taxes to pay for this, but they still do. Like right now, all the conservatives are saying, hey, we voted in Trump. We want to build the wall, but our taxes don't go directly to that wall funding. Let me tell you why, because that's not how the federal budget and funding and all that stuff works. So I feel like we could eliminate some of these problems if the government actually budgeted themselves the same way the average American does. Says, I make $4,000 a month. This is all the money I have to spend. If I spend more than $4,000, I'm going to be putting myself in debt. I don't want to go into debt, so I'm only going to spend what I take in. I think that would be plan number one. If we could just only spend what we take in, that would make a lot more sense to me. Because like I said, right now, our tax dollars don't go towards the things that we want it to.
Mm-mm.
And there's also some people who believe in a progressive tax rate. Steve Bannon, believe it or not. See, that's what I'm saying. It's kind of a misconception of what conservatives believe in. I heard Steve Bannon speak the other night, and he said that he's all for taxing people 40%, 50% after their 10th million. So once you get $10 million, from that point on, we're going to tax you 40%. So they call it I think they call it a progressive tax rate.
Yeah, that's the same thing. Ocasio-Cortez said that as well. Like that. Yeah, Ocasio-Cortez said that after $10 million, we're going to tax you at 60 or 70%. She said that as well.
Steve Bannon, just so you know, Steve Bannon, the speech that Steve Bannon said this in was like 4 or 5 years old. So he's been talking about this for a long time. So it's not like all conservatives were like, oh, lower the taxes. When we was talking about lower taxes, we talking about lower taxes on us, right? But we definitely wanted the taxes to be lowered on the job creators as well. But it definitely doesn't make any sense why after a certain amount of millions, you couldn't be taxed again. Also, I say that, what you were saying with the funding of Planned Parenthood, we could also stop the funding of Syria. You know, stop the funding we send to Israel, right? They're a well-off country. What they need more money for, right? We can stop the funding that we send to Germany. Or we can just end some of the wars and send some of that money to help with the healthcare costs too. So I would agree with you on that if that's how we were going to slide the money. But if we weren't going to slide the money, I personally don't want to be forced into paying money for healthcare. So I don't like the idea. Now I don't have to because I'm a veteran, right? So glory to God, thank you, Jesus, right?
Right.
But I do wish that they didn't force us to pay for the money unless they were going to subsidize it with some other money. Now, if Obama would have said that, I mean, he'd have had my vote. You know what I mean? For sure.
Right. Yeah, I just don't want people to have to, I've read articles or watched news clips where people basically had to decide between their life and, mortgaging their house off just to pay for their medical bills. You know what I'm saying? Even like my grandfather, he passed away in 2011. Basically, he had got a staph infection. I told the story before to Solomon. He got a staph infection from getting both his knees replaced. and they were basically, the insurance wouldn't cover some of his medication. So they had to dip into my grandfather's his retirement, like $10,000 to $15,000 to $20,000 out of the, just taking the money out just to keep him alive. And I think it got to a point where my grandfather said, you know what, I'm tired of fighting, and I don't want to leave my wife with no money. So I felt like he just gave up and just passed away. You know what I'm saying? So that right there, that's one thing. That's why I think for me, I'm for, I guess you want to say, universal healthcare, or a better healthcare system, so people don't have to go through that. Everybody, I'm pretty sure everybody on this page, we're one paycheck away. We get sick one good time. We could be, foreclosure, or we could be
homeless,
evicted for rent. You know what I'm saying?
No, yeah, you're right. You're 100% right. And so what I should say is, I'm for universal healthcare. That's for sure. Healthcare, we should definitely have healthcare. But at the same time, I'm talking about with the money. So we should either have some kind of like healthcare savings programs where if I'm spending, if you're going to take $200 or $300 or $400 out of each one of my checks, that should be into a 401k or a healthcare savings. I should be able to take that money out if I don't use it, because this is a good example. We should go into this. Social Security, for example, each one of us are all four of us are all Black men. And did you know that most Black men don't live to see age of 65? So we pay into Social Security for 65 years, and then we don't get to use it, right? And then some of our family, like your family automatically gets it. They can't work and get it. They can only get it if they don't work, right? Mm-hmm. So that means that money is just going to the United States. We're basically making a deposit every month into the United States government for nothing.
Right.
The community should have access to that.
And see, that's what I'm saying. That's why when I say, if you want to talk about what the government can spend its money on, as a conservative, I say, okay, look, if you want to talk about taxing the upper 10 million or whatever the case may be, and that goes to paying, like for example, let's just say, for example, they say, okay, this is how we're going to tax people. We're going to tax the lower class 10%. We're going to tax the middle class 20%. We're going to tax the upper 40%. And then everything over $10 million, we're going to tax it 60, 70%. I have zero problem with that. And if that progressive tax that they're taxing the rich on goes towards, like you said, helping somebody who's like a paycheck away from being sick, or like, they don't have, I have zero problem with it going towards like a national quote unquote system where they can get help, because it doesn't tax quote unquote the working man. Now, while I also understand that the people who are the ones complaining about it, because the biggest complaint right now is that it's just for the rich. So I'm like, if you want to reverse that and you want to go ahead and tax the rich to be able to do some of these programs, maybe assist with some of the like the homeless problem and some things like that, zero problem if that's coming off the quote unquote the backs of the wealthy. Zero problem with that at all. But if you want to raise the middle and the lower classes to pay for that, that's when I step in and I say I have a problem. Even though I honestly don't agree with the progressive tax like that, but if we're going to do it, then make sure you raise it on the top. Don't raise the bottom. Let the bottom recover and try to progress and do what we can for our families. If you're going to do it, then, I mean, sorry, tax the people who make the most.
Yeah, I would only say that if I was going to, I'm completely against raising taxes, period. If it was up to me, there would be a flat tax on everybody. That would be my personal thing. And then we would just use the money we already have, like I said, for the wars, funding Planned Parenthood, subsidizing people and stuff, like, subsidizing different countries. Like I said, like Israel is a wealthy country. Why do we still send Israel $2 billion a year? You know what I mean? Right. Germany is one of the wealthiest countries in the world, and we still send them $2 billion, $10 billion a year. So I would stop sending money to other countries, and that's how I would pay for it. And I would be against raising taxes on everybody, only because if we raise taxes on the rich, they also the job creators. We see that when we raise minimum wage, McDonald's say, I'm going to put some dang electronic machines in here then. So if you raise taxes on the rich, you best believe they're going to retaliate on us too. So, I mean, we think we're not going to see any retaliation. They're the ones who got all the money. They own all the business, so they're going to retaliate on us. Believe that. They're going to say, oh, well, I still want my yacht. So
got
you.
Not
gonna all of a sudden just start to
just fork over that money. Yeah, that's what I was saying. Like, I know I was talking about like how Kevin Durant's gonna get a $40 million contract, right? His next contract is gonna be $40 million. So based on this progressive tax, he would pay 40%, so he would get $6 million from his first $10 million. and then the remaining 30, he would only get 12, and the government would get 28. I have an issue with that, but that was just kind of sort of how the progressive tax worked. But what I want to do is I want to let BJ, because he raises. I see that hand being raised. I want to get his point. Then I want to go to like one of the last issues I have, and then we're gonna wrap it up. Go ahead, BJ.
I just want to ask, what do y'all think of it? How you say her name? Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Yeah, I want to know what y'all thoughts on her and why is she so popular? I don't understand.
Okay, I'll just give I'm only gonna give her 10 seconds. She's popular because she's attractive, she's young, she's Hispanic, and she did something. Honestly, if she was a conservative, people would be in love with her because she knocked out somebody who you would say is a swamp, right? The guy was sitting there for 30 years. She knocked out a very cranky Democrat. Now, while I don't agree with a lot of things she says, they voted her in there. I don't have a personal problem with the young lady. I don't really agree with anything she says, but I do feel like she's just a conservative boogeyman. Like, people just make it seem like she's the most awful person on earth, and I'm just like, well, I don't really have no thoughts on her because, like, to me, I don't think she's really going to be a policy generator. She's just going to be a talking piece for the next 2 years.
I personally love Alexandria Ocasio. I know y'all didn't believe y'all was gonna hear that from me, right? What? Yeah,
I'm gonna wait for the zinger.
No, I'm serious. No, and I actually just did a video on her today too. I haven't got to put it out yet, and I know people gonna be mad at some of the things I said, but it's the honest truth. I don't agree with her policy wise, but the reason why conservatives hate her and the liberals hate her is because she's a form of Donald Trump. She's one of those people. She didn't come from the swamp. She didn't come from the establishment. She's shaking everything up. She's saying things that we've all wanted to say for a long time. Well, why don't you take the money from there? Things you're not allowed to say. You know what I mean? So there's certain things you're allowed to say, certain things you ain't allowed to say. It's funny because when they asked her about Israel, most of the conservatives put it up on, they posted it, put it all on their Twitter and everything like that. She doesn't know anything about foreign policy. No. She know about foreign policy. She didn't want to get banned, right? So she was scared because you can't say nothing bad about Israel. So she said, I already know that much. She didn't want to get banned because they asked her, what do you mean the occupation of Palestine by Israel? She didn't want to go elaborate on that. You see what happened to Mark Lamont Hill when he elaborated on that, just like I'm not going to elaborate it because I plan to run.
Yeah, they're going to take this video down for the last 2 minutes. That's why I'm like, hey, you've been talking, you done mentioned Israel 3 times, 2 minutes. We talking about black folks. Why we even talking about Israel right now, man? We talking about black people, baby. But Anthony, go ahead, Anthony. You have any thoughts on AOC as they call it?
But just so everybody understand, I don't want nobody. What do they call it? I'm not an anti-Semite. I don't have no problems with Israel. I love Jewish people, and I believe that I actually
wave the flag.
That I think they are like the model minority that black people should be modeling after them. And there's a reason why I believe that. I ain't gonna go too far into that either. But black people, we should be modeling after what they're doing. I'm just saying it's the honest truth that their country is well off. They don't need any more extra money or now they need military support from us, but they don't need any more extra money from us. But as far as Alexandria Acosta, the things the comments that she was making about them it is true. And so I go on to say this. I like her. I don't like her policies. I like what she's doing in politics, how she's shaking it up, how she's not from the establishment. She won in a minority district that was being ran by a white guy for 40, 50 years who did nothing there. And that I also like the fact that the way she's reachable, she's touchable. I believe that all politicians, whether conservative or liberal, should be reachable and should be touchable just like her. Cooking in the kitchen, we should understand that they shouldn't try to drink a beer like Elizabeth Warren. You know what I'm saying? Right. But I just think that we can all kind of relate to, being young, vibrant, good looking. That's just my personal opinion, and I think she's gonna be here for a long time. That's my opinion.
Anthony, you got anything?
Yeah, I personally like her. I think she's, like you said, she's a newcomer. She beat somebody who's been there for 30, 40 years. She did it like, grassroots, no corporate money, just out there grinding with some, people from the neighborhood or some college students that came from all over to help her with her campaign. I feel like she's a brand new congresswoman. I believe that she's mature. She's going to be even better. She'll be a better senator. Right now, she's just full of passion and energy and just excited to be there in Congress to make to try to make change. I believe she has a genuine interest in what she's trying to do. Mm-hmm. But I do feel like at the same time, you know, she still needs to kind of be mindful of not burning bridges within the Democratic Party.
I think she needs to humble herself a little bit.
A little bit, you know what I'm saying? But still keep it straightforward, keep it like, you know, passion or whatever. But, you know, politics is about relationships and building those networks and, you know, compromise, you know what I'm saying?
Correct. And like I said, I think that if she was a conservative, people would be not necessarily not with her policies, but just like her background. Because one thing that bothers me is like I hear conservatives, and you probably heard this before, they talk about she's not qualified. Oh, she was just a bartender. Being, you know, that doesn't make her qualified. I said she talks to people. You understand what I'm saying? You don't need to be a lawyer or a business owner. That all stuff sounds good, but to me, I'm like, I want bartenders in Congress. I mean, that might sound because I know they know how to talk to people. You know what I'm saying? And then I know most bartenders are like, they know how to talk because that's how you make your money. You make your money with you. Well, that's gonna sound weird. You make your money with your mouth, but anyway, situation where you know what I mean. You know, bartenders ain't bad people. So I think
she had a regular job, like you said.
Yeah, she was a regular person. You understand what I'm saying? Like regular person, bartender, whatever. I think some of the other stuff that kind of surrounds her, don't have enough money for an apartment. These shoes she has, I'm just like, you know what? I don't care. I don't care. It's not important.
I don't know. Yeah, I'm pretty sure y'all been to DC a lot. I've been to DC a couple times. And man, rent and mortgage, man, you go to Georgetown, you talking about getting a building those built like in the 40s and 30s for $3 million. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's expensive living out there.
When I go to Congress, go ahead. When I go to Congress in 2020, I'm living in the hood. Like we living in the hood. Like, yeah, I'm living in the hood. Like for real. It's gonna take me a while to get there.
And one thing I will say too that I noticed from just the Democratic Party now, if you look at the party itself, it really is a big tip at this point, bro. They won the House, you know, they won a lot of governorships. And within the Democratic Party, you have the LGBT community, you got the poor, you got Black community, you got all these different factions within the Democratic Party. They appeal to everybody. Yeah. But the perfect example I want to talk about, if you look at the day when they swore in, you looked at the Democratic side, you saw every color, every shade, every hue. You looked at the conservative white side, none but white men.
Yeah, don't worry, I'm gonna change that in 2020. I'm gonna be on that other side. Don't worry, I'm gonna change that.
Hey, you know what? And he's not lying, and that is the reason why Black people, Hispanics, whoever else you want to name, that's why they vote Democrat. It's because of the look. But I vote for somebody not based off the color of their skin, but by the content. They do something for me, right? But you're absolutely right. I actually, when I saw that, I was so disappointed. I actually need to do a video on that because I wanted to do a video on that because the truth be told, if you're talking about being represented, you definitely ain't being represented on the Republican side if you're a person of color. But if you're talking about being represented as far as somebody looking like me or somebody that can empathize with my situation. But if you go on the other side, they got so many women. They got way more women that's elected as Democrats. They got a Muslim girl, which is, you know, unprecedented. I think an Indian girl got elected too. You
can technically count Kamala Harris. She's Indian or Black when she wants to.
Well, Indian Black when she want to be Indian. But even Cory Booker, he Black. You know what I'm saying? And I mean, so there, when it comes down to being like color representation and gender representation and actual like have a broad scale of ideas, you definitely have that on the Democrat side. But in my opinion, the Republicans have the policy. The problem with the Republican Party, we don't have no empathy. But and that's why, and lastly I'll say about Alexandria Acosta, when she couldn't afford the apartment, it was like this is something that should be celebrated. That somebody that came from nothing just made it to Congress.
Exactly my point. Because you already say politics is corrupt. So shouldn't one of these like big donors just came in and just bought her place? Like that's why I was like, she can't afford a place.
And now I would agree with you, Anthony, and you probably would say this, and Solomon, you probably would say this as well. Us as Black conservatives, we kind of was coons or we was quiet, and we kind of didn't do no justice by not speaking up saying that. Right? Because if I said that on my channel, I lose all my followers.
Right. Yeah. Okay. All right. So just like we're gonna kind of wrap it up because you know, I don't want to hold everybody. I know everybody got stuff to do. The last and to me one of the biggest barriers that I feel like the Black conservative movement has right now is the unwillingness to speak out against basically the Confederate flag and the Confederacy and all that other type of stuff. I feel like that is when you have a lot of white conservatives who will tell you, oh, it's about heritage, not about hate. And I'm not trying to hear all that. You understand what I'm saying? I'm like, the Confederacy needs to be viewed for what it was. And it was a time where these people seceded from the Union and they fought against the Union. The Union was the United States. So if you're an American, you should be against anybody fighting against the Union. And I feel like as Black people, what the Confederate flag represented, what that flag represents, what the star and bars represents is never going to be something that 99%, because I know there's a couple of Negroes who I unfriended who had some Confederate, who were trying to, even had a picture with the Confederate flag. And I'm not speaking of Lil John because I understand what he did. And he was making a statement, but to actually, to me, co-sign anything dealing with the Confederacy, I feel like that is going to be huge because anytime somebody has anything to do with the Confederate flag, they're going to look at Black conservatives like, yeah, what you got to say now? And anything besides, nah, we don't rock with the Confederate flag either. That's something we trying to get rid of. It's not, like I said, not necessarily going into the quote unquote, I don't want to get into the monuments debate. I'm just talking about, especially in the South, the Confederacy, the Confederate flag and what it stands for. As long as that flag now rests, because before it used to rest on the Democratic side and now it rests on the conservative side. Now that flag is staked in the ground on the right, it's going to continuously be a problem until more Black conservatives speak out on it.
Right.
Leo, do you agree? Disagree?
Leo.
No, so for me, when it comes down to the Confederate flag, I got a quote here: "Those who don't remember history are doomed to repeat it." I personally am one of those people who believe that, if the states vote to take it down, then the states vote to take it down. I'm not going to march to keep it up. I'm not going to march to take it down. I'm not doing either. I don't believe that the government or that the tyranny of people have the right to go drag some Confederate flag down or a Confederate school. Some of us went to schools that were named after Confederates. I'm preaching, but y'all don't hear me. Right? So, hey, that's the truth, right?
I say to an extent. Well, that's what I'm saying. I'm not really talking about the South, yeah. What I'm saying is, and what I want you to speak on is, it's not about whether or not we should march and take down the monuments and things like that. What I'm saying is, and I'm not even saying that if you see a Confederate flag, you should burn it. What I'm saying is, do you see that as being a problem? Because I understand what you're saying, history repeating itself. I'm not saying that you shouldn't talk about the Confederate, the Civil War. You can't let people know what it represents. What I'm saying is, when you see the Confederate flag, is that a symbol that conservatives should embrace? Because right now it's on our side. And what I'm saying is, it's a problem when you're trying to go, like you say, I'm trying to go over to Pittsburgh, Mechanicsville, and they hear I'm a Republican. Oh man, y'all done guy who rock with them Confederate. Nah, we can't rock with. You see what I'm saying? And you're automatically going to be pushed away. So that's what I'm saying. I'm not talking about. I feel the exact same way. I'm not the attention being thrown at street names, at elementary schools, at monuments, and all those type of things. People want to mess with Stone Mountain. I don't. But I'm just saying, like, to me, I don't have an issue with like that stuff. What I'm talking about is what the Confederacy and what the Confederate flag, for example, stands for. I'm not talking about whether people have a right to bear it, because they do. They have a right to put it on the back of their truck, house, whatever. I'm speaking of as far as it being, like I said, because right now it's a symbol of conservatism almost, right? It's a symbol of the right. It's a symbol of the 2019 Republican Party, especially in the South. So that's more or less what I'm speaking to, not the should we take the monuments down and all that type of stuff. Should we change name of streets? That part is to me, it's I'm not gonna say it's a waste of time. I'm just gonna say I feel we got other issues. I'm just saying we're talking about expanding. We want to get the Black vote. As Black conservatives, we're trying to get people like Anthony to come to our side. And if we want to get them to, well, not come to our side, or at least can he just Can we just get him to slide an R vote every now and then if he gets a good young candidate who's fair and is going to win the 6th district in 2 years? If you can get somebody to do something like that, you know what I mean? Like, that's what we're trying to say. We want to open up the conversation where we're not necessarily looked at as coons, XYZ, blah, 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 blah. If that's what we're going to do, then I feel like we got to start speaking out against this Confederate flag. We can't say it's just about heritage. We can't just say the Civil War wasn't about slave, all that other type of stuff that goes along with it. Because like I told Anthony, I love, and this is going to sound weird, but growing up as a child, I loved the Civil War. It was fascinating to me. I could tell you battles, generals, history, colonels, how many people died in certain battles. Like, I remember as a child, I would tell my mom, I want to go to Antietam. I want to go to Gettysburg. You know what I'm saying? I wanted to go to the battlefields because I wanted to see, like, I was fascinated that this country, as great as it is, we found a time when we were that divided that we actually said, you know, it's one thing to be divided now on a policy, but it's another thing to be divided where you say, you know what, I'll kill you for that right that I'm sitting there saying I'm fighting for. You understand what I'm saying? So I'm saying, like, that was as divided as America has ever been. People say we're more divided now than ever. I said no, because we're not shooting people in the streets and we haven't succeeded yet. You see what I'm saying? Like, I feel like that was clearly the most divided point in history. So
I agree. I agree with you that the Republican Party has done a bad job with taking on the mantle of the Confederate flag. But you also got to think this too. It's not that we have intentionally taken on the mantle. Many of the conservatives were just defending the right for the you know, and also defending people destroying personal property and government property. Many of them wasn't saying, hey, let's keep the Confederate flag up or let's keep up this general. Many of them were just saying that, where does it stop at here? Are we supposed to always bend to the will of the mob? In Detroit, they renamed the school after Dr. Ben Carson. They said they want to take that down because they don't agree with Dr. Ben Carson now. So they want to name the school after Obama. So where does it stop at when you don't agree with something? Where does it stop? But I understand what you're saying. Now, one thing I'll put an asterisk by. If you're a white conservative, if you want to defend people not taking the monuments down and feel like that the mob shouldn't rule, if the state governments vote to take them down, then they get taken down, whatever. I don't believe that the people should be able to go drag them down. But if you want to go say, hey, we should vote on it, they vote for it, they take it down, that's one thing. A black conservative shouldn't be defending this in no kind of way, right? A black conservative shouldn't be out there saying, don't take them down, y'all mobbing. They shouldn't care what happened, right? They
shouldn't have a Confederate flag as their background on Facebook.
No way.
Okay, I just want to make sure.
No way in the world. This one dude I know, I ain't gonna mention his name, but I guess I can mention his name. He's a known conservative, Joel Patrick. He wears the Confederate flag every now and then too. I've actually talked to him in person. Me and him talked in person. He explained to me why he was for it, et cetera, et cetera. And I told him I was still against it then, and I'm against it now. You know what I mean? So, but he did have his reasoning for why he did it. But that goes back to what I was saying, that there's some black conservatives, and I would definitely say there's many of them today that are more pro-American than they are pro-black. And that means it's like they don't put black, they're not saying like, oh, you know, I'm for whatever black issue first. They for the issues of all Americans, which include blacks too. That's my opinion.
Correct, but I'll just say real quickly, like, and I agree with you when we talk about. That's why I go back to the original, like the 1776 movement. You feel what I'm saying? When you want to talk about against tyranny and things of that nature, because that was supposed to be the war that united us as a country. The Civil War was a war that divided us as a country. You understand what I'm saying? So that's why I always look at the Civil War, even though, like I said, I was fascinated by it. I always view those as being different. So that's the reason why, like, if you want to have the because I believe that's where the "Don't Tread on Me," the little flag with the snake, isn't that from the Revolutionary War? If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So like when I see that flag, it doesn't do anything to me. But there's still something about when I see that stars and bars. There's something that, like I said, it needs to be spoke out against. And then I totally agree with you. If you're a black conservative or you're a black Republican, and you co-sign that, you make it so much harder for us, because somebody will always come back to this picture or this person when you said, oh, you know, I don't have a problem with it. Well, that's going to be you. And I'll go to Anthony. Go ahead.
I personally, if you look at a lot of those statues or placards or whatever, or even the Confederate battle flag. It was actually the Virginia battle flag. They didn't start coming back around till the Civil Rights era. That's when they started putting a lot of those statues up. Was it the Confederate Sons or Daughters organization?
The Confederate Sons of America, the CSA.
Yeah. Their whole intention of putting a lot of those statues up there was to make their ancestors look as if they were not fighting for slavery or whatever. So I personally think they should be put in a museum. You know what I'm saying? I don't believe how I look at it. They were traitors at the end of the day. If you trade, you're a trader. You should be, stuff like that should be put in a museum. You don't deserve to have any type of space on American soil at the end of the day. You know what I'm saying? That's how I look at it.
Okay. My bad.
And I agree. And I 100% agree with that. Well, all I was saying was that the state legislators should be the ones to me to vote to have that done, or the city, the city council.
Right. Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah. I don't believe in destruction of property, regardless. Well, I ain't gonna say regardless.
Yeah, and then
the Grand Wizard of, they tried to put the Grand Wizard of the KKK statue on Bankhead. Yeah, I'm gonna go kick that thing over. You know what I mean? Like, a little bit different. But what I'm saying is, like, to me, even from a historical point, that's the reason why, I don't want them to change Stone Mountain. I want them to leave it the way it is. Like, I feel like that's just, leave it the way it is. Like, Stone Mountain doesn't do anything to me. I'm sorry. It's like, to me, I've been there, Stone Mountain. You go up there and walk. If you ever been to Stone Mountain Park, and
pass out on top of the mountain.
Correct. Exactly, man. You bring your family out there, and it's a lot of us that go to Stone Mountain and do the nature walks or do all the different things you can do at Stone Mountain. And I don't believe that when you bring your kids to Stone Mountain, you're sitting there telling your kids about, oh man, look at, like you're offended, or, like you feel some type of way. I don't think that's what's going on. So that's just pretty much what I'll say about that. I just wanted to get your opinion on that, but we're gonna go ahead and wrap things up. I'd like to personally thank Mr. Leo Dunson for coming on. Just let him know he's always welcome on the show at any time. And as I believe, are you officially running for Congress?
I'm not allowed to say that I'm officially running for Congress, so I intend to run for Congress. It is 100% my intentions. I have opened up a congressional intent committee.
Okay, got you.
But I definitely intend to run 100% here in Nevada, in Nevada's 3rd district. I plan to win. But I mean, things could change. But that's if I don't raise enough money to run, then I'm not going to run. But I do plan to run. Thank you guys for having me. It was a pleasure talking with you, brothers. Anthony, it was a pleasure speaking with you, bro, and BJ.
Yeah, like I said, then once again, I'd like to thank Anthony for coming on. I always like to thank BJ for being in the background, making sure the usable media that won't get flagged anymore is available. Like I said, for Leo, man, I do wish you the best in your. I know you said you can't say it, but if you do decide to run, man, I wish you the best in your thing. I plan on running. I'm just trying to figure out where, and I think I have found my location where I'm going to be running. I can go ahead and unlike you, I can go ahead and announce it. I'm running in the 6th district. So where
Hank Johnson, right?
Huh?
Is that Hank Johnson?
I thought the 6th district was where Karen Handel lost.
Oh, you're talking about Lucy McBath, is that right now?
Correct.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I will be trying to, I guess, quote unquote, retake that district back, or just win the district. I'm not even gonna say retake it, but yeah, that's where I plan on running. Yeah, even though I don't live in the district, I'm still planning on running there. So yeah, that's my goal right now. Right now, I don't live in the district, but
hey, you better get ready for them suburban moms then.
I am ready for all they come, and we gonna do it the Ocasio-Cortez way. We ain't looking for a lot of money. We gonna hit the ground running. I'm gonna go door to door, do what I gotta do. Man, talk to the Kimmer because he lives up there. See if he can give me a little something in the, maybe he can endorse you. Who knows? But I think that will be a solid way to try to get things started off with my quote unquote political career. But nothing's in stone yet, but that's just like to me right now, which makes the most sense because I thought about going for the Senate, but I figure I might as well wait for Isaacson to retire in 2022 when it comes open. That'll be a better thing instead of trying to, because let's be honest, I think I'm a great dude, but nobody knows me, and I don't think I can knock out David Perdue in a midterm and then go up against whatever Democrat they're going to run here too. So I'm not trying to do all that. So yeah, I feel like you got to go somewhere where it's a winnable district. Let's just put it that way. And I just feel like the only reason why they lost was she won. No offense to Lucy McBath, but nobody was feeling Karen Handel. Just be honest about it. Nobody liked her, and they only voted her in the first time. She barely beat Ossoff, remember? So, but anyway, like I said, I ain't gonna hold y'all brothers, man. I appreciate the time that we have spent tonight, man. Y'all boys go out there, y'all be safe and be blessed, and we'll be back next Monday at 8 o'clock on the dot. And you might have another special guest next week. So until then, man, we'll see y'all next week.